Good to have you here. It is 3 and out on this Wednesday. Braves take a tough one, man. The bullpen lets them down today, and one of those things that happens in baseball, you don't get the double play. Next batter hits a 2-run homer, and you're behind with 6 outs to go. And that's what happened with the Braves this afternoon. But they take one of two from the Phillies, which really now all anybody cares about is pulling for the Washington Nationals later this afternoon. I think the Mets and Nationals first pitch here in about 10 minutes. And if the Nationals AAA team can get it done again against the Mets, then you're going into a big 5-game series down two and a half games, which at that point is all you ask for. You're in August, getting ready to make the turn towards September. You have 5 games against a team directly in front of you. It doesn't get any bigger than that, fellas. And oh, by the way, coming off a very active trade deadline where Alex Anthopoulos makes a move. As he said, it came together 2 minutes before the deadline happened yesterday. So at 5:58, he's on the phone trying to close this thing down with the Angels and gets Raisel Iglesias. But it's all coming down to this next series. You get Odorizzi in. You're going to have all the new moves in. They're in New York. Can the Braves gain whatever's left? 3, 3.5, 2.5 potentially. When it's all said and done.
Yeah, 5 games in 4 days in New York City, and it's going to be exciting. And look, today's disappointing. You got a great start from Charlie Morton. You got a double in the first, I think, swing from Robbie Grossman, who you brought over. And you mentioned the play. Brian Snicker was talking about it in the post game where you had JT Realmuto beat out the double play, and you don't see that from a lot of catchers. And then, of course, that happens. And then Castellanos, the 2-run home run, and the game changes. But look, the Braves have had a great stretch, been playing great baseball. You would have loved to have got the victory today. But if you want to think about it like this, you reset the win-loss equilibrium, get the law of averages back on your side. I'm just trying to find the silver lining ahead of going to New York. But, yeah, Washington beat the Mets yesterday without Soto and Bell. So, this is going to be a race to the finish. The Braves are clearly, obviously, directly one of the playoff favorites, whether that's in the East or in the wild card where they have a substantial lead for the number 1 spot there. But disappointing loss today, but really excited, Ben, for the next couple of days with the Mets.
Yeah, no matter what happened these last couple of games, you know it was going to come to all eyes going to be on New York the next 4 or 5 days. And, you know, Kevin, it goes back to what happened when it came to this Braves team early in the year. Look, 10.5 games, people's like, oh, man, just take it game in, game out, don't panic. As Snit said, look, I know it's crazy as it is, but you put yourself in a position, you're 100 or some odd games in to be in this position because all the pressure is, yes, the Braves got to go out there and play well, but the Mets aren't used to being in this position this late in the season. But the Braves are going to have to go out there, you know, play poise, play loose, and got some new additions going to be traveling up to to New York with them. But that's why you go out there and play. I just think this Braves team understand that, look, while they haven't ever gone into the playoffs as a wild card, not saying that's going to be the case, I do agree with something you say, Kevin. I think they're going to catch these Mets. I think you're going to learn a lot about this Braves team this next series. But I just think that when you look at the way this Braves team is put together, they can match with the best of them. They're not going to win them all. Kind of got away from them today, but I still like their chances.
It's playoff baseball in August, man. That's as plain as it is. A playoff baseball in August, it's all you can hope for heading into the weekend there with the Mets. Thought it was funny. Alex Anthopoulos makes a move essentially to get the Angels closer as Iglesias in the final couple of minutes. He's the guy that was up for the Mariano Rivera relief pitcher of the year last year. So you're solidifying the bullpen with guys that can throw some heat. And you lost Jesse Chavez. You lost Tucker Davidson. We'll talk more about that. But Alex Anthopoulos saying, hey, yeah, when it comes down to the deadline, my family goes away. I'm like, what do you mean? Oh, they leave town. We'll talk about that in more hour 2 coming up next. Good to have you back here. 3 and out on this Wednesday. Braves, man, a tough one to the Philadelphia Phillies today. It looked good for 8 innings and just could not hang on with the bullpen. Braves have made some moves over the last couple of Raciel Iglesias, Jake Odorizzi. We're going to see them against the Mets coming up this week. So we'll get to that coming up in just a little bit. Still to come this hour, we got Troop Talk on this Wednesday. Ben sits down with former Georgia quarterback Quincy Carter, a former NFL QB, former Georgia quarterback Quincy Carter, who just recently on social media celebrated a 3-year milestone of sobriety. So Ben sits down, talks with him about that, football, and much more. So we'll hear from him this hour. Also, Sean Elliott, Georgia State head coach, will join us coming up in the final hour. They are picked 3rd preseason by the media in the Sun Belt behind App State and Coastal Carolina. So Sean Elliott will join us coming up in the final hour of the program. But fellas, first, let's take 3 here on 3 and Out. All right, take 1. Who is your second team in the SEC East here in the preseason?
It's tough because I think there are a couple of candidates. And, Ben, normally I would look at the Florida Gators, and I think the potential is there. There is a question mark or two with Billy Napier coming over, just in terms of how long the transition will take. I think it was a great hire. But you look at some of the talent on the roster. I mean, Anthony Richardson and Javon Dexter. And I mean, this is a roster, a team that has a chance to emerge in that number 2 role, I think. I know a lot of folks are talking about Kentucky. I think Chris Gordy said maybe Kentucky was his number 2. You love what they've done along the line of scrimmage the last couple of years. Will Levis is being talked about as a first-round pick at quarterback. Chris Rodriguez at running back. I mean, big-time production there. South Carolina. I mean, how do you know what to expect? South Carolina exceeded a lot of expectations a year ago. And you have Spencer Rattler now, right, coming in, who not long ago was being talked about as a Heisman Trophy front runner. You still have great talent at the running back position. Josh Vann at wide receiver. Defensively, you've recruited well. I think South Carolina could be a real X factor. But until proven otherwise, even though I like all those teams and I think they're going to be in the mix, I'm going to go Tennessee. Hendon Hooker was fantastic a year ago, and think he didn't start the season as the starter. And maybe if he was in the lineup the whole season, there's another win or 2 potentially for the Volunteers. Josh Heupel's system has been consistent. I know there are questions on defense. I understand, but I think you were limited numbers wise a year ago. I think you're going to have better depth defensively for the Vols this fall. And, you look at the wide receiver position for Tennessee, you have Cedric Tillman, you have Brew McCoy, and you're talking about a season from Hendon Hooker where he was 2nd or 3rd in the nation in passer rating last year, has the mobility as well. Just great touch on his deep ball. I think that offense, that tempo is so difficult to prepare for. So right now, I will go Tennessee.
Florida does have a lot of question marks. I think that Florida will go as Anthony Richardson goes. I think that they're going to be able to establish a run, bringing over guys like Osiris Torrance, like big guard coming over from Louisiana is going to help. The running game is going to definitely help my Florida Gators. Kevin, BJ. I do agree that Tennessee and Hendon Hooker, once he got put into the lineup, they were really, really good. The thing about that offense is it depends so much on the defense when you think about saying, hey, if we do go 3 and out, can the defense give us a 3 and out to get us right back out there on the field? For my money, I'm going to go Kentucky. I like Spencer Rattler, right? But he's at South Carolina not because it worked out at the previous school. It's because it didn't. It's because as good as he was, everybody keeps going back to his freshman year. For my money, I'm going to go with Kentucky. Kentucky is always going to be Will Levis, another year in the system. You mentioned Chris Rodriguez coming back, a guy that's really, really good as far as giving them a solid running game. The thing about Kentucky is they're going to play solid defense. They scratch and claw outside of maybe Georgia, they're going to be in every single game they're in this year. I think that Mark Stoops, outside of Nick Saban, the second longest tenured coach in the SEC, doesn't get the credit they deserve because we can't get past, it's Kentucky football, not Kentucky basketball. But for my money, Will Levis got a chance to be a first-round pick, top 10 pick, by the way. Chris Rodriguez adds some depth as far as giving you a quality running game to complement the passing game. Like I mentioned, they're going to be really, really good on defense again. Give me them Wildcats.
Yeah, I'm going to go Kentucky as well, fellas. I think, again, they quietly had a terrific season. Last year, I think Levis more comfortable in year 2. I think they got the run game, their offensive line. I think defensively they'll be all right. I think they'll be all right. We've seen them kind of be consistent, at least on defense under Stoops. So I'm going to go with Kentucky ahead of Tennessee. I'm interested to see what Tennessee does. Again, I don't know if Tennessee can get off the field when they need to. It might be hellacious to stop offensively, but if you can't get off the field in a key spot, that could be the difference for me. I'm going to go with Kentucky. All right, take two. Who is your number 2 team in the West right now?
Yeah, and you could go a couple of ways here. Obviously, I think I'm leaning LSU, and I know there are clearly questions with LSU. Again, new coaching staff coming in with Brian Kelly, maybe a little bit of a quarterback controversy potentially there, but quietly, I know more focus is probably paid to high school recruiting than the transfer portal, but you saw LSU do really well in the transfer portal, especially along the offensive line. Went out and got Miles Frazier from FIU, who was an All-American type player. Brian Kelly's first recruiting job when he got to LSU, make sure Kayshon Boutte stayed in town. He did. He is one of the best receivers in the country, could be a top 10 pick. And regardless of what you have at quarterback or anywhere else, you're going to have a guy that can make a play, score a touchdown, blink of an eye there with Boutte. So I think having him is a huge asset, difference maker there. Defensively, you have B.J. Ojulari coming in as an edge rusher, setting the tone. LSU always has an edge rusher that can kind of bring it and be that point of attack person defensively. I think that the depth is good along the offensive line and along the defensive line. And I also think that Brian Kelly's a really good coach, and his success at Notre Dame has been consistent. Now, you look around at some of the other contenders, A&M, they have a lot of talent. That defensive line with Jimbo Fisher, I mean, they've been very confident this offseason. What about the quarterback position? Are you stable there? Can you score enough points week to week? Can you finally make it to that SEC championship game level? I think you look at Arkansas maybe as a sleeper. Jalen Catalon, one of my favorite players in the whole country, the safety for Arkansas, big time star. But are you balanced enough throughout your roster? I think Auburn maybe takes a step back. I think Mississippi State is hard to get a feel for. Ole Miss might be one of those other teams where you just don't know. So much movement in the transfer portal, but Lane Kiffin's done a really good job. I just think, of course, Alabama's a clear number 1, but I think you have star power at LSU. I will go with the Tigers at number 2.
Whew, man, the number 2 team, once again. Oh, man. You wanted to be Texas A&M with everything they're doing, making all this noise in the offseason with the number 1 recruiting class, but you always got to give those classes, 1 or 2 years to kind of see, how they're going to shape up. BJ, yeah, bringing a guy in like Brian Kelly into LSU definitely makes a huge difference. But I think it is Ole Miss. I think what happens with a team like Ole Miss is, we get so caught up in what Sam Pittman is doing at Arkansas, LSU getting a guy like Brian Kelly, what in the world is going on with Auburn. Every time you don't expect them to be good, they are good. 10 wins. And all people say, well, you got to replace Matt Corral. No. This offense and what Lane Kiffin is doing with this offense, and they're not going to be top 10, top 15 in recruiting. They're going to go out there. And for those of you who didn't know, if you haven't heard, Matt Corral said he did regret not going down there with them boys. He said, I probably should have went down there with them boys, but that's another.
What does that have to do with who you're
saying?
Oh,
I'm just because I never forgave Matt Corral. He let old Jim McElwain scare him off to go up there to Ole Miss. Anyway, for my money, it is going to be Ole Miss, BJ, because like we said, when you got a coach that has an offense that you just got to play and plug guys. People say it's Matt Corral. I don't think it is the quarterback. I think it's the style of offense that they want to play. Very, very sophisticated offense. You got to have a guy that has, can utilize his wheels as well as his arm. But Sam Pittman, I like him. I like Brian Kelly, but I'm going to go with them boys from Ole Miss.
Yeah, that's tough because I think it is Alabama, and then there's a gap to everybody else. I really do. LSU, we'll see. Brian Kelly's got the pedigree. Can he step into the SEC and just jump in feet running or dancing, as the case may be, since it is Brian Kelly? I would say, BJ, to disagree with you, I would say that Jimbo Fisher has been less confident than he was. Last year, remember, he was on the circuit saying, we're going to beat Alabama. Haven't heard that this year. I heard a lot of, why don't we go dig around Nick Saban's closet? Get your eyes off my program. I think they're building something there at Texas A&M, but I don't know if they're quite there. I'm going to say Ole Miss right now. They quietly won 10 games last year. Ole Miss won 10 games last year, and nobody really talks about it. Why? Because Saban and Jimbo kind of go back and forth at each other. And you had the classic game there. You had LSU and their turmoil. Now you have Ole Miss won 10 games. You get Jackson Dart coming in. I think with Lane Kiffin's offense, they're going to be a tough matchup. I think playing for second's like playing for fourth right now in the SEC West, because I don't think it matters. People are that far behind Alabama right now, but I'll go Ole Miss there in my number 2 spot. All right, take 3, fellas. What are your thoughts? CBS Sports put out a full ranking of college football teams 1 to 130. Georgia Southern comes in at 119th out of 130. What are your thoughts about CBS Sports putting the Eagles at 119th, despite the fact the media picked them 4th in the East in the Sun Belt?
Yeah, that's too low. That's too low. I mean, look, this is a program that it might take a couple of weeks. It might take a season. I mean, anytime you have a transition where you have a new coaching staff and you're changing some of your philosophy a little bit, yeah, there may be some ups and downs. And I think there are some questions, but this is still a program with a lot of talent, a program with a lot of pride. Clay Helton's won big games. He's won consistently. Ben, I know you were talking about Brian Ellis coming in with that offense, setting records, doing all kind of crazy stuff production-wise at Western Kentucky that not many programs around the country have been able to match. Now, the schedule is very difficult. We know that. The schedule is challenging, but with those challenges come opportunities. You're going to have a chance to go to Nebraska. You're going to have a chance to play against Grayson McCall in Coastal Carolina. You're going to have, I believe, last week of the season, Appalachian State in Statesboro. You're going to have early on in the season, and we'll chat with Sean Elliott later, you're going to have the rivalry with Georgia State. I mean, you're going to have a lot of games where a lot of people are watching, but I think this program has recruited well. You've gone out and you've done well in the transfer portal. You know, we'll see with Kyle Van Treese at quarterback, a veteran, has been around college football. I believe this is his 5th or 6th year around college football, but you have talent at running back. Gerald Green was very productive a year ago. I think you're going to be good at the line of scrimmage. Now, on paper, do you sit here and say, we know for a fact Georgia Southern is going to be better than Appalachian State and Coastal Carolina in the East or Georgia State? No, I don't think you can say that. I think there are questions, and I think it's fair to say and acknowledge there are some unknowns. What's the offensive identity going to be? What's the balance going to be? How's it all going to fit together? But I think 119th is way too low.
This is a reflection of who you are now, who you could become, and it's a reflection of where you at as far as like this conference that you in. I mean, I still give Jared Binko, athletic director for Georgia Southern, a lot of credit going out there and getting Clay Helton, but it's a lot of question marks, BJ. And when you got too many question marks, how do we know how they're going to look on offense? What type of defense are they going to run, even though that's probably going to be the strength of their team? J.D. King, we wish him nothing but the best, but had to retire from football. So the thing about it is people be asking, hey, why do certain teams look so different when they go away from what they're known for, right? Georgia Southern it's going to be crazy watching them not run the option out there. And I get it. You want to try to – that has a lot more to do with recruiting. But, BJ, you talking about going to Nebraska. You talking about Coastal. You talk about Georgia State. You talk about App. I mean, the Sun Belt is the best. I'm sorry, it is the best G5 conference in college football. You don't got to like it. How many teams are trying to play the Sun Belt out of conference? Not many. So I just think that when you look at the fact that yes, every team in college football has potential, but most teams they got as many question marks as Georgia Southern is. New offense, we don't know how it's going to look. Defense. I mean, we know that's going to be the strength, especially in the secondary. We don't know how it's going to look. Who's gonna be the starter at quarterback? How they gonna utilize them? Well, and then he got to go to Nebraska, got to go to Coastal. So I do think Kevin, you always saying this, the disrespect card. Everybody's gonna do it. Alabama had a rebuilding year last year. What the hell is that? Rebuilding year in the national championship. So I know Coach Helton, he understands he has some big shoes to fill as far as like the tradition down there. In Statesboro, but yes, 119, that's all the motivation you need.
Yeah, I think there's 131 coaches. 131 coaches are going to play the disrespect card. Nobody believes we could do it. Coach your preseason number 1. I don't care. Nobody thinks we're going to get it done. I mean, they all do it. It's ridiculous. Yeah. Y'all count us out all you want. I mean, Nick Saban, like I said, hey, we were rebuilding last year. Okay. No, I think that's a little low, but I will say 3-9 last year. You got question marks on how you transition out of the offense. What's it going to be? Now, the pedigree of the coaching staff you brought in looks pretty good, right? But what does that transition look like? How good can the offense be? How quickly can they get up to speed? How quickly do they iron out all the kinks? I mean, you go out there looking like you have no identity, bunch of 3 and outs. It could be bad. Your schedule's tough, right? Your schedule is very tough. So I think it might be a little low. How low? I don't know until I see. I mean, are they 99th? I mean, you get into some of these, I think you're kind of digging in the weeds a little bit. This lead seems to be a little low, but I don't know if it's egregiously low, maybe by 15, 20 spots. But I don't know if it's much different than that. I'm kind of wait and see with Georgia Southern. I think Clay Helton's going to do a good job, but he's got to go do it, right? You're taking over a team that went 3-9 and didn't compete on the scoreboard in a lot of games. Ben, you know this. There's a difference in being 3-9 and looking at it and say, we lost 9 games. We lost 8 of them by a possession. Okay, well, that signals you might get a pretty quick turnaround. I don't know how many of those games Georgia Southern had last year where it was like, yeah, if we could have just – they had a couple of games where it wasn't even close. And you've got to figure out a way to close that gap and win a couple more games. Going to be interesting there in Statesboro. We got more to come. Troop talking about 15 minutes. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you here. We'll get some Braves baseball coming up in just a little bit, but some breaking news. The NFL going to appeal the Deshaun Watson decision. So Roger Goodell has officially filed their brief, or however you explain it there, to appeal the Deshaun Watson situation. And Roger Goodell will now pick who hears the appeal. So, I mean, then I think common sense would tell you if two people are having a dispute and you don't like the way it came out, and the side that doesn't like the way it came out gets to pick who hears the appeal. How do most people think this is going to go? And a lot of people really upset, obviously, that it was only 6 games. Fans, some people around the league, and obviously people upset that, Calvin Ridley gets more time for gambling than Deshaun Watson did. I know not guilty by a court of law, and the judge came out in her own statement and said, oh, it was bad. And you settled with 20 women. That's something, obviously, you can say, well, I don't want to fight the legal process. Well, that's also, if you're innocent, that's a lot of people to pay off. And you can say either way you want to on that one. So it's going to get appealed. The league allegedly, before this all started, said they wanted a year suspension. Ben, how do you think this plays out now that Roger Goodell essentially can, well, he will get to pick who hears this thing?
I think Roger Goodell is showing why he likes to stay away from the disciplinary process. The reason why he's picking somebody is he goes, look, I know the final say, but I want to be able to say, take it out of my hands, let people put it in the hands of people who do this. This is what they do, from judges and whoever he's going to pick. But if you don't think that public scrutiny, if you don't think that the outcry has a lot to do with this, I'm not saying he wasn't going to do this. And let me just say this. Doesn't matter what Deshaun Watson gets, is not going to be enough. No matter what he gets. If he goes from 6 to 8, 8 to 10, 10 to 16, because what happens is, right, Roger Goodell is showing people, I want to be over the league. I don't want to discipline people. Because no matter what Roger Goodell does, he goes, my reputation got bad because no matter what I do, I'm wrong for it. If I give him a year, it's too much. If I give him 6 games, it's not enough. So Roger Goodell is saying, okay, we suggested a year, and maybe this third party entity, might adhere to that.
And this is from Adam Schefter. The personal conduct policy, is a tweet, states that the appeal will be, quote, processed on an expedited basis, and the commissioner or his designee, quote, may overturn, reduce, modify, or increase the discipline previously issued. It will be final and binding on all parties. That's from the personal conduct policy of the NFL.
Make no mistake about this. Everything you just said, Kevin, it could be expanded, it could be reduced. And what happens is when you get 2 different entities looking at the same thing, and they're gonna go through what the conduct policy is. That's why Judge Sue Robinson, the reason why she went through the conduct policy, she said, well, I'm not gonna give him a year when y'all never gave anybody a year. But Roger Goodell is saying, listen, we're gonna let this thing go through the full process. And once it goes through the full process, whether you like it or not, this is gonna be the ruling, or we're gonna move on. I think they're gonna probably add more games to it.
Yeah, I mean, this has to be extended, right? I mean,
you would think, BJ, but this is the thing. The reason why you let it go through a judicial process is they rule things different. We rule things through emotions, through feeling. They don't do that. They looking at what it was. They're looking at how the NFL goes about things, and they're gonna make a ruling. I would think it's gonna be more games. I don't think it's going to be more games, but if anything, Roger Goodell is saying, look, if Roger Goodell comes out and says, we're going to take the 6 games, move on, people go crazy. No matter what this third party does, some people going to like it, some people not going to like it, but either way, the Browns are ready to go a full year without Deshaun Watson, because once again, his money doesn't kick in until next year. But I do think the NFL is trying to do damage control as best as they can right now, because one of the faces of their league is obviously under public scrutiny. And until he goes out there on the field, which is all going to go away when he does, they're trying to give it the full, process and give it the full due diligence that it does deserve.
And Kevin, I understand you reading the tweet saying that, there are multiple options for the appeal, but whatever happens will happen. I mean, the appeal had to be filed, and it had to be filed in an attempt to increase the suspension. I mean, especially given the speculation, the reporting of what the NFL wanted suspension-wise, I guess, entering the initial review from the judge.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be increased. This should be increased. I mean, what do we think? I mean, is it 6 to 8? Is it 6 to 10? Is it 6 to 12? Could it be a full season?
I think it's going to be extended. always remember when you talk about the NFL, you always got two entities. You got the players and you got the coach. I mean, you got the players, you got the owners. So what happened already is, quote, the player side, the NFLPA side. That's Judge Sue Robinson. Now you got to go through the league, right? So this is what the league is doing. Like, and you don't want this is what he's really doing. They don't want no Stephen Ross type stuff. The league, investigated itself and found the league did no wrongdoing. What?
Well, and apparently this is not going to be Roger Goodell's decision. He's going to,
well,
I mean, it won't be, but I mean, again,
Roger
what are
Goodell
the
gonna shake
options?
his
I
hand.
get to pick who oversees
Yeah,
the
but I mean, there's
appeals,
going to
so
be a person, a judge or a
You would
person.
think so,
party,
but
but he
I
gets to
would
pick
I
it.
would always ask this: if this is a quote party that has a lot of dealings with the NFL, you would want to go back and see how they ruled. And this is not like out of the realm of things that have happened before. It's because of who it is. It's because of, because like I said, the NFL is saying, hey, Stephen Ross one day, Deshaun Watson the next day. So it's probably gonna go back to Miami, come Thursday or Friday. But Deshaun Watson and the Browns know that the NFL is gonna have to do something because 6 games, whether you like Deshaun or not, whether you like the NFL or not, that's not gonna cut it. But once again, let me not put the cart before the horse, because if they come back and say, hey, we think it's gonna be 4 games. So this thing could get crazier before it gets better. But but the bad guy in the end is gonna be the bad guy forever. That's gonna be Roger Goodell. No matter what he stands up at that podium and says, people ain't gonna like it.
I don't see a way it gets less. I mean, the league
I don't
allegedly said they wanted more. They get to pick who hears the appeal. One would think if I get to pick who hears the appeal, you're going to rule kind of in my favor in some way, shape, or form. I would expect it to go up. I want to know how you justify, again, if you're violating the personal conduct policy and you have not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6, not 7, not 8, not 9, not 10, not all the way up into the, you settled with 20 and there's more. How you can say via the personal conduct policy that's 6 games, because the personal conduct policy is about just that, Ben. What does it mean to the league that you haven't behaved yourself? And you gave a dude a year at least.
Yeah.
For gambling in Florida when he wasn't with the team he was playing, and nobody knew about it until it came out in a report that he gambled on a team. And you gave him a year. I think the league is going to add more games. I think the public sentiment
I think so
is
too.
to add more games.
Yeah.
Because people are looking for some kind of thing. Like, how does this make sense the way you're legislating out punishment? We got more to come. We'll have Troop Talk. Ben sits down with former Georgia quarterback Quincy Carter. When we come back, it's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network.
Now it's Troop Talk with Ben Troop.
If we're not victorious, let no one come back alive.
Not that kind of troop. This kind.
What up, everybody? I am Ben Troop. This is Troop Talk, and my next guest, I got it. Obviously, I had the pleasure of playing against at the University of Georgia when I was at the University of Florida. But what he's doing in life, man, is something that we don't celebrate enough. As being former players, we don't get an opportunity to just celebrate each other as men. Yes, former second-round pick, obviously also drafted in the MLB by the Cubs. Quarterback coach now for at Advanced Quarterback Camp. Former Georgia Bulldog. But more importantly, celebrating 3 years of sobriety, the great Quincy Carter. What's going on with you today, Quincy?
Hey, I'm great, man. I appreciate that introduction, man. I'm good, though. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I mean, before we even get to anything football related, 3 years of sobriety. I think sometimes when people see the professional baseball player, the professional football player, the great college football player representing the great Southwest DeKalb out of Atlanta, Georgia, they forget about the person, and sometimes we forget about ourselves. And when real life happens, they say, "Well, wait a minute, this happened to Quincy Carter." Like, yes, I mean, talk about the journey, but talk about celebrating 3 years.
Man, it feels great, man. I talked to my sister a couple days before, and I told her, God willing, I'm going to have 3 days, and I want you to, because, man, I'm almost cell phone, computer illiterate with far as adding little ad-libs on pictures and all that. And I told her, man, I said, you know something, Kia? I said, man, I'm starting to feel like myself in high school. So I told her, grab this picture and put it, the words that I'm starting to feel like this guy again. And that's truly how I feel, man. And you said it best, man. We sometimes we get lost in the shuffle in sports. And that certainly happened with me, especially dealing with some things in my personal life, and tinkering around with some things I ain't had no business doing. And then next thing you know, man, I done took off to heavier drugs, cocaine, eggs, alcohol, but it all led and started, man, with that dangerous marijuana that everybody's trying to, convince everybody is legal. But heck, you can't even get no job sitting around smoking weed. So which is crazy in itself for people to try to convince these kids that it's legal, man. But man, it's been a journey, man. I really have found myself. More importantly, I found a peace and serenity, but that all, comes from the relationship I have with God and knowing no matter what, my life is going to be okay. God's got the strength, wisdom, and love to give me. And, man, it's been quite a journey, man, this last 3 years growing as a person. It really has.
Talking with the great Quincy Carter, former New York Jet, former Dallas Cowboy, former Cub, former Georgia Bulldog, but more importantly, understanding that, in this life, man, when you at your worst, you get to find out who's really for you. I think when everybody is smiling at you, you're signing autographs, you seem to be the toast of the town. Everybody wants to be around you, but when you at your worst, you get to see the people who was there for you, regardless of what you was doing. How many people in your life you talked about your sister, just a minute ago, Quincy, but talk about the people who you didn't know the type of unconditional love these people had for you. It took you being at your worst for them to show you their best.
Yeah, buddy, it really simplified that friend list, and you got it. And no knock, on some of my guys who ran from me, but, my mom, man, my stepfather, I don't have biological brothers and sisters, but I do have God sisters, Delinda, Chastity, Kayla. They stood in there with me, man, in the trenches, and only thing they could do was pray. In some, excuse me, in certain parts of my life, they could only do was prayer. But man, they certainly stuck in there with me, man, and it took me getting it straight. But you got it right, man. That friend list will narrow on you when you go through something. But it's all love from over on this side.
Quincy, my father, I had to deal with him, going through his journey. I like to call it your journey of, dealing with alcohol and drugs and different things. I never judged him. I never put an expiration date. Somebody told me, I asked somebody, how do I deal with my father when he's going through what he's going through? He says, don't put an expiration date on a person who you don't share the same reality. You can't say, oh, because it's not me. But also, you also gain people in this journey. Like sometimes we say, man, I'm in and out of these facilities. Talk about the people you gained along the way, because now you become a voice for these communities. Because when people hear drug and alcohol and different things, we kind of sometimes shun these people as if to say, hey man, I just made a bad decision. Talk about the people you get to be a voice for, a face for, and kind of speak on behalf of the people who don't have a voice.
Yeah, and I miss one of the most important people in my life. Almost two though, but one very important because he was dealing with addiction, alongside with me. And that's my grand sponsor, Hollywood Henderson. And just, man, having somebody like him in my corner who really understands what I was going through over all these years. Because, we met back in 2008. And so he's been on this up and down journey with me. And then my high school coach, Steve Davenport, who's been in this journey with me. But then, all my sober companions, some great friends, man, who I can really go to and really talk about what I'm actually feeling. Because, man, through this journey, man, what I have found is that, addictive people, we think and act and do things differently, and we just do. And so to gain some of those friends, some of my coworkers, man, a dear friend of mine, Marsha Stone, who didn't hesitate to come pick me up down there in South Texas where I was at and bring me to Austin, man. I can go on and on. My sponsees, guys, that I'm, being able to give it back and be in their lives, man, it's just a beautiful thing. But, when I really look at it, like-minded spirits always connect. And so when it's negativity in your life, those like-minded people, when you're not doing well, heck, those are the people that are going to be in your life. But when you doing the right things and everything's being God-led, then you're going to get those special people in your life, man, just like your spirit is. So it's really simple math, to be honest with you.
Talking with the great Quincy Carter, former second-round pick of the Dallas Cowboys, also played for the New York Jets, also got drafted by the Chicago Cubs, SEC Freshman of the Year, a second team All-SEC, also played for them Georgia Bulldogs. Quincy, there are people that I know I said it earlier. They only get to show you their best when you at your worst. I wish life wasn't like that, but a lot of times when we going through something, the shame of it is bigger than the decision itself. Like, man, I don't even want nobody to see me like this. It's almost like the persona of who I am has become who I am instead of me being who I am. Talk about just understanding. Like you say, I feel like myself. At what point did you realize, look, man, I'm going to put myself in this facility, and I'm not going to come out until I'm ready? And what did it take for Quincy Carter to get back to himself to say, look, I enjoy the person staring back at me in that mirror when I'm looking in it?
Sadly enough, Ben, it took all the things that I went through. It really did. Some people get it on the first time. But like myself, man, I really tried to still convince myself that I can go back to being that 17, 18-year-old kid that only smoked marijuana. But the problem is I would get some time up under my belt, and then I like to call it going back to that weed maintenance. And I would try to go back to that weed maintenance, and I'd be daggone. I had then picked up a habit that, I call it, going past that threshold where now we're doing harder drugs, and I never got back to that 17 and 18-year-old kid and cannot get back there, but I tried to medicate it and do the weed thing. And next thing you know, man, I got a bowl full of cocaine and a fifth of liquor. And then that whole just snowball effect just starts over again. And that's what people deal with addiction wise, man. Sometimes, we realize that, man, this thing has really gotten hold of us. But then we try to go back, and do some things and do it the way we used to do it. But once you pass that threshold, man, it's over. The party's over. But it took me going through so much, man, before I realized it. And see, that's the part of addiction a lot of people just don't get. Like, well, why can you just not stop really destroying your life? But that is the disease right there. That is addiction. And there's only two ways to come up out that thing, being one, surrendering to God or a higher power. Don't get tripped off on that. Mine's is God. It can be a higher power, but it got to be something outside of ourselves. All right. And the second thing, man, is you got to work these steps. And then it's a lifestyle after that. It's not a full-time job, but man, you're literally fixing yourself every day to be the best person that you can be and know how to really deal with life, because that's the biggest trick about anybody who's going through addiction. All right. We don't know how to deal with life. And so we relearn those things, So it's a beautiful thing, man, to keep exploring. My awareness gets heightened. I'm prepared for any situation. No, I'm not perfect, but good God Almighty, man, I know I handle things well better than I did even in my my late teens and early 20s.
He is the great Quincy Carter, former Georgia Bulldog, second round pick by the Dallas Cowboys. Also spent some time with the New York Jets. Also was a draft pick by the Chicago Cubs from the great Southwest DeKalb High School in Decatur, Georgia. But more than that, he's human. And sometimes, Quincy, when it comes to being former athletes, sometimes we have to realize that we human beings, that we don't got to see ourselves as the world see ourselves. Yes, we had our moment in the sun, but that's not all of who we are. That's just a part of who we are. But Quincy, man, I appreciate you doing life with me today on this interview. I think sometimes, my daddy said the greatest story there is the redemption story. Boy, if you think I was down and out, or as my daddy would say, but those who counted out Quincy Carter cannot count. And I'm one of the ones that's definitely rocking with you, Quincy, man. I appreciate you taking the time today, man. We're going to do this again. QuincyCarter17.com at Advanced Quarterback Camp. Quincy, keep doing what you're doing up there in the great state of Texas, man.
Hey, I appreciate you, man. Stay blessed out there, buddy.
Appreciate it.
So much.
That was True Talk with the great Quincy Carter. We'll be back with more 3 and Out.
This is Marty Smith from ESPN, and you're listening to Three and Out with Ben, TJ, and Kevin.
Good to have you back. Here it is, 3 and Out. Kevin, BJ, and Ben, and news that makes you feel old. I saw this earlier today, fellas. Tom Brady apparently turns 45 today. It's his birthday. Happy birthday, Tom. He is 45. Apparently, there is not another single player in the league who is 40 years old. So he is Grandpa Tom out there playing football. Gives you a little perspective on, like, what are you doing? What are you doing still out there, Tom Brady? And statistically, he was the best QB last year.
Tom Brady got drafted, 98? Something like 98, I want to say.
98, 99, somewhere in there. Yeah.
No, Kyle Pitts.
Or 2000, 99, 2000, I think.
Kyle Pitts and those guys were born in 99, 2000. So he's playing with guys that were born when he first got drafted. And people say, why does he keep coming back? Because, I mean, right, wrong, and different, who's better than him? I didn't say who could throw the ball better than him. I didn't say who has the flair, for excitement more than him. Who's more athletic than him? Who's better than him? BJ. He's 45 years old, right? Every day, Father Time is waiting on Tom Brady at the end of his driveway, and he slapped the hell out of him because he said, "Bruh," because this is the thing. Everybody says in order to have longevity in any career, you have to change everything about you. What you eat, how you sleep, how you work out, what may have you. But no one ever said that. I've never seen nobody get better over time like Tom Brady. Maybe LeBron, maybe Kobe, right? Maybe Tiger. You got to accept him to the rule. But his best statistical year was 2021. And some could say, well, why would they give the MVP to Aaron Rodgers? Because they thought Tom Brady was retiring. And he did retire. Then he went home with his kids for about 2 months. Right back in Tampa. I've never seen anything like Tom Brady, and I'm sorry. What he is Cal Ripken Jr. I don't know how many games it is, Kevin. You're not going to see this again. What if Patrick Mahomes wins the Super Bowl? He can call Eli, because Eli got 2. He can call Ben Roethlisberger, right? Think about it.
I just think the money's so big, you weren't going to see guys.
No,
why would you want to play 2?
So this is what makes Tom Brady go. It's not the 7 championships. It's not the 10 Super Bowl appearances. I got $325 million when I leave. I'm already good in my next life. And I could stink at my next life. And I'm going to get $325 million deal or whatever they gave him. Tom Brady is winning, man. I'm going to say it. I'm going to say what nobody wants to say. Baby mama, supermodel, wife, supermodel. That's what we want to say. It's okay to say it. I mean, think about it. If somebody said, man, what would you want your life to be? Man, I want to be a starting quarterback in the National Football League. I want to be married to a supermodel. Well, that's real life. His name is Tom Brady. And he's coming back for another year.
I mean, yeah, he's 45.
Is he older than you?
Yes, he is. And that puts it more into perspective. Because I know I was never a great athlete like that. But I was like, so somebody my age is out there running around with 20-year-olds and doing a good job, like doing an elite job, right? Statistically, he did the best job of any quarterback in the National Football League. Now, obviously, you could say, well, Matt Stafford did the best job. They won a Super Bowl. I get it. But like in the regular season, nobody was better. Touchdowns, I mean, yards, he was up there. Statistically, he was top 5 in a lot of stuff at 44 years old. Like, I can't imagine me being me today, waking up and saying, I'm going to training camp to do what? Take a picture? Like, he's out there,
Did Tom Brady win the MVP when he was 40? So since he's turned 40, he's an MVP, Super Bowl, and...
We got hour 3 coming up when we return. Sean Elliott, final hour. Welcome back. 3 and Out, final hour here on this Wednesday. Braves, a tough loss earlier to the Phillies. Now it sets up for a big weekend in New York. 5 games in 4 days. Can the Braves close the gap here heading into mid-August? We'll have to wait and see, but you'll have some of those new pickups available in New York. Raisel Iglesias and Odorizzi are expected to make their debuts. Odorizzi on Saturday is part of that doubleheader, so we'll get to see some new guys there as far as the new Braves are concerned. That being said, college football is also in the home stretch towards the season. Nick Saban saying in a radio interview, last year was, quote, kind of a rebuilding year. They went to the national championship game, and that was just their second loss of the season.
I mean, they also won the SEC.
Yeah, so I guess by Bama standards, SEC champions, no national championship, lose an SEC game, you're in a rebuilding year. And you could make an interesting case. Georgia fans, don't get mad just yet. But you lost 3 receivers. You could make a case that maybe they don't lose any games, potentially, last year. I know you can't play the game. Everybody gets
that's
hurt.
hard. That's hard to do.
I'm using this more in this sense. Georgia fans, stop getting mad at me. If you say you are in a rebuilding year, I only use that point to say you were a couple healthy players away from being as good as you've been. And you're technically rebuilding. So I look at it, that's an absurd comment. Now, did we have people say, if you're going to get Alabama, last year was the year to do it? Yep. But that doesn't mean you're rebuilding. That means you're just not as good as you have been, right? That's like saying the LA Dodgers, boy, we're really rebuilding. Why? Because we only made the NLCS last year. Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
And correct me if I'm wrong, looking back on last year.
You know who's rebuilding? The Pirates.
Right.
They're rebuilding.
They lost to Texas A&M on a last-second field goal in College Station.
And then got smacked in the fourth quarter by Georgia. I mean,
But still, and you lost in the national championship game where, to your point, you were down a couple of guys. I mean, Ben, you've talked about this before. How do you know a dynasty is a dynasty when you kind of take it for granted, right? When it's like, oh, Alabama.
You make absurd statements like we're rebuilding.
Well, this too. But it's like, oh, Alabama, they're going to be in the national title. I mean, for how many years now have we been able to say in August, national title, favorite, maybe number 2, number 3, Alabama. And what's the case this year? I mean, they might have the 2 best players in the country. I mean, in Bryce Young and Will Anderson. And they're going to be right there. And it is funny, Kevin, because going back to last year's SEC Media Days, that was the talking point. Everybody's whispering, this is when you get Alabama.
No, I don't know if they were whispering like that. I think people said, look, if you're going to get them now, because
and they
next
still
year, they're going to have a bunch of
the
dudes
national championship game. They still make the national championship game with injuries that will be very difficult for a lot of teams to absorb. Yeah, I mean, I respect the standard. Listen, a mindset like this is what makes Nick Saban, and is what makes Alabama. But that's absurd. Like making the national championship game and winning you won the SEC. That matters.
Yeah.
You have an SEC championship ring.
I do. So my mama got my ring somewhere.
You won the SEC.
Yep.
That's all time.
Yep.
Winning the SEC and losing in the national. That's not a rebuilding year or kind of a rebuilding
year.
Right.
Hold on, though. It is absurd unless it is Alabama. I think that is a good statement. Kobe, may he rest in peace. Kobe's in the finals. Kobe them up by 2. They say, Kobe, man, you up by 2, man. Why you look like that, man? You guys get that because the job isn't finished. See, when you are Alabama, every single Alabama recruiting class has won a national championship under Nick Saban. Alabama last year, in their mind, underachieved. Yes, they won the SEC. Yes, they was in the national championship. But in their mind, hey, man, it was a rebuild. You know who don't like that? Yeah, Georgia fans. You know why? Because it seemed like it's minimalizing what y'all did. It's not taking away what y'all did.
Okay, but can I ask you this?
Yeah.
Because even though it's hard to say, maybe you can understand we underachieved. Our goal was a national championship. We didn't realize it, so we underachieved. Is that the same as, quote, kind of a rebuilding year? Because I'm like Kevin, when I think rebuilding, even for like an Ohio State, a Clemson, a Georgia, you're talking about what, 3 or 4 losses? I mean, that's normally what you talk about with a rebuilding year.
Yeah. But we stop comparing greatness to the standard. There are a lot of teams out there that are great, incredibly. Ohio State, great program. Georgia, great program. Clemson, great program. They ain't Alabama. And Nick Saban, he has to use a different type of motivation. There ain't a player at Alabama don't think, one, they're not getting drafted, two, they're not getting drafted high, and three, they're not going to win the Natty. That's what they think. Other teams are saying, hey, man, we got a chance to be really, really good. Nick Saban has been wreaking havoc in the SEC. When he was in LSU, he was doing it. So I think what he is saying is, look, I'm just telling you how we feel in this building. In Tuscaloosa, we said we was going through a rebuild last year. Yes, we can still have Will Anderson. Yes, we finally got the first Heisman at quarterback in Alabama history, but we're going through a rebuild. And I think what happens is when people hear that, go, that's crazy, man. Ain't no way. Because that's how we view Alabama. Ain't no way they're going through a rebuild, right? No. When they no. A rebuild in real life is Atlanta. It's Jacksonville. That's a rebuild in real life, but they're not the standard. Nick, in the National Football League, the one coach that thinks that they can win every year, even if they don't, is Bill Belichick. He goes, hey, man, we can win over here. Why? Because that's all we've done. Yeah, I know you're going to attach me to Tom Brady, things of that nature, right? But we win over here. But they say it's rough when you play over there. Pittsburgh, it's rough when you play for those type of organizations. Alabama is the creme de la creme when it comes to college football.
So you're basically saying, by saying this, and I understand it from Nick Saban's standpoint, like every coach wants to win every game. And you're right, Alabama is the standard. I get it. You're basically saying, because to Kevin's point, you won the SEC, the Heisman, but you didn't win the national championship.
Nope.
Are you saying that regardless of what else happens, if you do not win the national championship, it is a rebuilding year?
Yes, because the thing about it is this, right? There are certain things that we judge differently. You don't believe me? LeBron, they went out in the first round. LeBron's 40 years old.
I mean, I think there's a difference in disappointing
No.
versus a
But
rebuilding year.
Hold on, but Kevin, this is the thing, though, Kevin. If you're a coach at Alabama, right? If you're the coach, that's not absurd what you hear. You're like, dude, y'all just have to be here. Y'all just have to see it. Y'all just have to see how this dude is. He is very, very, very demanding. He doesn't treat the assistant coaches that much different than he treats the players. Because when he says, hey, man, it takes what it takes. You don't got to like it. That's why everybody, one, don't get recruited by Alabama, and two, don't go there. So I think that when Nick Saban says things, he don't even bat an eye. He's like, hey, do you know you just said that? And I say it again. It was a rebuild year. Nah, man, you just saying that because y'all lost. No, I'm saying that because that's what it was. So you mean to tell me y'all could have went through a rebuild and still won it? Yep, but we didn't win it. So I think that what happens is when you start talking about certain places, listen, I played for the Tennessee Titans, right? I played for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I played for the then Oakland Raiders. They are not the media dog. They are not what runs the National Football League at all. Because what happens is when you start talking about the standard, Alabama's one of those places to where Nick Saban just seems to be a guy that goes, "Hey, man, congratulations, Jimbo. Congratulations, Kirby." But y'all know what's coming, right? Like Kirby and them know. Even if Georgia is the team to beat in the East,
Okay, let me ask you about
country.
Florida. Because from what, 96 to 2008, over a 12-year span, Florida won 3 national championships. That's pretty close to a dynasty.
Yeah.
I mean, 3 national championships in a 12-year span. If Florida wasn't competing for a national championship, was it considered a rebuilding year?
No, it was just a disappointing year. I think the whole thing about it is too, different things mean something different from to different people. It just depends on who you ask. But it's like what you say. It's like you ask somebody, what's a lot to you? Somebody gonna say 3 is a lot. Somebody gonna say 1,000,000. So it's
Or let me ask you this, and I agree. I'm just trying to kind of find parallels to Alabama, even if they're relative. Georgia's the defending national champion. Georgia's got a lot to replace. They bring a lot back. They've been recruiting really well. Let's say Georgia goes 10-2 this year, whatever, however many games you play in the regular season, make the college football playoff, lose in the first round. Is that a rebuilding year?
I don't think it's I don't think it's a rebuilding year for a team like Georgia. I think it's a really, really good year. But when you listen, good is the enemy of great. And the thing about a team like Alabama, that is greatness. And greatness is something that you don't see all the time. You don't believe me? Nick Saban and them expect to win every year. Think about this. They expect to win. Every other team, man, we preparing to win. We go out there and prepare to win. That team over there, they expect to win. You know why? When Alabama loses, it's breaking news. Somebody beat Alabama. Who the hell beat them? Because it doesn't happen that often. Nick Saban is saying, look, it is my job to instill in these players. We expect to win. That's why it's supposed to be hard. You gonna like winning. You better enjoy working because I'm gonna make you work for it. It's like this. LSU won that championship 2019. right? Clemson done won a couple of national championships. Who do they have to either beat in the game or beat to get to? That would be Alabama. I don't care who you are or where you are. Alabama is the only team that don't got to win the SEC. They still gonna be in the college football playoff. Alabama, they can win the SEC and obviously still get in. I just think that what happens is we don't see greatness is like the word beast. We just throw it around like it happens all the time. No. Greatness is a seldom thing. It's not all the time. Now, can I have great moments? Oh man, I can show flashes of greatness. Alabama's great. Period. You don't gotta like it. I hate saying it, but it is the truth. Alabama is known throughout college football. No matter where you live, up there in the mountains of Utah. Oh yeah, they play some ball in Alabama. What about Georgia? They won last year. What about LSU? They had a moment. 2019 was an outlier for LSU. That was the first time LSU had beat Alabama in like 7-8 years. That's how good Alabama is. So I understand when it comes from a guy like Nick Saban, because he says, listen, I am demanding, but Mike Locksley, Lane Kiffin, all these guys, they're going to be head coaches. Kirby Smart. So you mean to tell me that the national championship winner was on my staff? I'm just saying he knows what he's doing. I just think that I'm just happy that them Gators got Alabama this year because they are the one barometer to where it's either going to be really, really good or really, really bad. Because Kevin, Jimbo talked a lot of trash. He ain't saying nothing about winning this year, though. Last year, he made a declaration this year. I'm going to talk about our guys. Well, what about the guy that said about the money coach, Jimbo? He been here a month. He been here a month? The guy that was talking about giving money? He was talking about the people in the stands. The people buying concessions? No, that's not what he was saying. But, hey, man, Alabama will be back. Will Anderson, the Terminator, Bryce Young. But they just added what? Eli Ricks, Jahmyr Gibbs. Yeah, they're going to be struggling in Alabama, Tuscaloosa this year. It's going to be rough.
Yeah, nobody's feeling bad for Nick Saban rebuilding. That's just a ludicrous statement to make. If you're,
let me ask y'all this.
I don't
quick.
care how much success you've had. You finished second last year and you won your league. You're not rebuilding. You're not rebuilding.
And maybe I'm not
you just
remembering.
didn't win it. I mean, that's all it.
I'm losing sight of the expectations, kind of in the moment, looking back or whatever. But like for Miami in the '80s, and maybe these programs weren't quite with the consistency of Alabama, Nebraska in the '90s, Florida State in the '90s. Was the standard if we finish second, that's kind of a rebuilding year?
I don't know. I wasn't privy to those conversations, but I could believe it was because some of these expectations would be unbelievable if you actually was in these meetings listening to what these coaches are saying. Some of these things you hear them saying, ain't no way we're gonna be able to do that. What do you mean the 2000 Ravens, right? The 2000 Ravens go, hey man, Trent Dilfer is gonna be our quarterback, right? We got to go out there and be able to hold teams to 7 points or less. What do you mean, 10 points or less? Ain't no way we could do it. They did it. 2002 Bucks. Hey man, we got this new guy named John Gruden. I mean, we got Johnson, but back there at quarterback, we got Michael Pittman, we got Keyshawn Johnson. We got to be the best defense in the league to win it. They did it. I'm telling you, but a team like Alabama is saying this. Hey man, what recruiting class was you? 2011, 2012, 2013. Najee Harris wasn't even going to Alabama. He was at the All-American game with Tua, and Tua said, come on over here with Tuscaloosa with me.
But it's like the Vince Young, Reggie Bush national championship game, right?
Yes.
One of the great games of all time. USC, that's one of the great teams of all. They didn't win the national championship.
They did not win the national championship.
I wouldn't classify that as kind of a rebuilding year for SC.
I don't think Coach Carroll would say that was a rebuild. At the same time, BJ, when last time you heard from Texas? Last time you heard from USC, it's almost like, look, man, thank God I was 2 years removed from college.
I get it. Alabama's different. It's
but
amazing.
I'm just saying, wasn't no HD back then, wasn't no 4K back then, wasn't no none of that. I'm just saying, it's like what Alabama is. Hey man, here come another one. Like Alabama has gotten us to expect the way they expect. I mean, we just expect Alabama to win it. Yeah, but I thought you root for Florida. I'm rooting for Florida, but you asked me who I expect to win it. In the privacy of my own home, I expect to be the boys from in Gainesville. But in real life, it's gonna be them boys with that Crips on because it's gonna be hard to beat them.
Again, I appreciate you were rebuilding last year, but save it for somebody else. I mean, come on, that's only Nick Saban, I guess, could get away with that. Sean Elliott going to join us coming up in about 12, 13 minutes here. We'll talk Georgia State football. They were picked third in the Sun Belt East and more. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you back. It is 3 and Out here on this Wednesday. Sean Elliott, Georgia State head coach, going to join us. We'll talk some college football with him. Some high expectations for that program as they were picked third preseason in the East by the Sun Belt media. So he will join us coming up here in just a little bit. Braves lose it earlier today. They get the big series coming up with the Mets this weekend. 5 games in 4 days, big series there for the Braves. Also, you got training camps going on, busy time on the sports calendar, and you get all the nice highlights. Ben and I have been chuckling, BJ, about who looks good in 7-on-7 and how many passes there. And then I don't know if Ben's just trying to make me feel, but he's showing the number 1 draft pick, Drake London, getting locked up in one-on-one coverage. And then we get videos from camp of Felipe Franks, quarterback / tight end Felipe Franks, cooking linebackers
Cooking them.
out there in pass rush. So
He's an athlete.
So a guy that doesn't play tight end is tearing up your defense. That's not good news.
Kevin, listen, we've gone. We still got a couple of days left in the week. I mean, we usually do our D Orlando Ledbetter report because D Orlando starts with, well, you know, it's looking good at the end. Like it's, well, you know, at the end of practice got a little rough. So all I'm gonna say is this: you can't cover Kyle Pitts. Surprise, surprise. Cordell Patterson, BJ is still, you know, they got him on the depth chart as the starting running back. I have a problem with that. And Drake London looks real good when he ain't going up against the number 1s. And I don't like this. I don't want this to be a report. Listen, he can run the 9 route. They just ain't thrown him to it yet. What? They won't throw him the go ball.
I want to talk about Felipe Franks because as a Jaguars fan, you know, you tried the Tim Tebow quarterback tight end thing. That didn't work out really well. There wasn't a whole lot of blocking, and you know, there wasn't a whole lot. Just, you know, with all due respect, Tim Tebow didn't work out. Felipe Franks, didn't he have a brother play?
Yeah, brother in NFL. Yeah, I think,
As a tight end?
Yes, I will say this, BJ. I am rooting for him.
6'6"?
Yeah, I am rooting for Felipe. He out there looking good, blocking and doing different stuff, right? I'm going to tell you the difference between Felipe Franks and Tim Tebow. The only thing they shared in common is they both played quarterback, you know, for Florida. Tim Tebow is a professional celebrity. Tim Tebow is going to be fine in life, right? Tim Tebow is all smiles no matter what happens because every day his bank account goes cha-ching. I'm not mad at him.
One of the great players in college football history.
Felipe is saying, look, this could be my last hurrah. I'm trying to play tight end.
All right, is this realistic? You did it in the league.
It is. I just think that once again, he's going up against guys that go up against every day. They said Tebow used to look good in practice. Did you see that game? Did you see what happened when he put him in the game? I'm not saying it's going to be Felipe.
He was shaking and baking Troy Anderson, who is, quote, learning to play linebacker.
But
it is your second round draft.
Yes, Troy Anderson played linebacker, quarterback, running back, and tight end, you know, out of Montana State. I'm not saying Felipe ain't going to make the roster. I'm just saying if he does, and this is no slight to Felipe, what does that say about the tight ends not named Kyle Pitts has played tight end my whole life? If I am in the National Football
League. But it's like Kevin said. He's 2 players.
Is
he?
Always,
no, hold on.
Is he?
You always talk about how value if you can do multiple things. I have heard Ben Troop on this show.
Yes.
If you can play multiple positions, special teams, whatever.
That's the multiple.
He can't be Taysom Hill.
Hell, we're a long way from Taysom Hill.
I will say this though. When I talk about multiple positions, I'm talking about special teams. I'm talking about making yourself valuable, you know, in other places.
But you're not the emergency quarterback?
Oh, and you did not want to see that. If the both quarterbacks go out, like, get up, boy. Oh, Lord. True. What?
Did you have a play where you were allowed to throw?
I mean,
they're probably just taking knees the rest of the game.
Listen, I'm gonna throw that thing and just hope for a good result. It's gonna be Hail Marys all game. Ain't gonna be no quick outs. No, I'm just saying Felipe is understanding that in order to have an NFL future, he's going to have to find a way to play a position. Think about this. Felipe Franks used to throw to Kyle Pitts. Now he's learning how to run routes from Kyle Pitts, even though they don't let him do the same thing. They're not the same caliber of athlete at all, but I'm rooting for Felipe. I mean, I really, really am. But every time I see him getting open,
is it concerning that a guy that doesn't play tight end is cooking your
It's very concerning, Kevin. Because if you got a guy that's never played a position cooking you, what's going to happen to the guys that played it?
But I mean,
put on the chef hat.
But I mean, don't we? Look, everybody's got a chance to be good. I think we all know that. But
whoa.
Hold on. But aren't there pretty clear kind of roster questions with the Falcons?
Listen,
I mean,
let's call. No.
Oh, there's a whole roster has questions. I
right.
think.
So I mean, I think we understand you're not talking about going up against
Felipe Frank's not gonna make the
one of
team.
the best
I love
teams in the
Felipe.
league.
I love Felipe. It's about 90 guys in camp. All right, Felipe, I love you. I do. Okay, let's switch it. If I came into the league at a tight end and I got to move the quarterback, you think I'm gonna make the team? No. See, that's all I got to do. Hey, Troop, man, listen, we want you to go over here and play.
I get it, man. I'm just asking.
No. That's no knock against Felipe, right? There's no knock against him.
We're all pulling for him.
We played one position your whole life. All of a sudden, man, go on there and put your hand in the
you've
ground.
had multiple guys try to go to tight end. It has not gone well.
All I am saying is a guy that played like basketball in college, can he play the tight end position? Yes, because he's athletic enough to do it. Felipe Franks went from taking the snap to not jumping off sides. I'm just saying, I wish him the best. But at the end of the day, I'm tired of people thinking that you could just play the most athletic position in football.
Is it concerning you haven't seen more Drake London highlights?
It is.
We saw the one. He's
No,
like,
no,
hey,
no,
here he is
Kevin,
getting
no,
locked
no.
up, no separation.
I would say this. When love D Orlando. When D Orlando said he can run the 9 route, they won't throw it to him.
Well, that's
Because I'm like, no, he can run it. What? They just won't throw it to him.
Well, Ben, to be fair, could run a 9 route.
There it is.
We didn't say how fast it had to be.
Okay,
I could run.
Can
the
I
route.
ask this? And this may be a dumb question. Do you work on things in practice that you haven't already proven? Like if you know that he can do that effectively,
Can he do that effectively?
Is that kind of? But I'm asking if that's something he's already accomplished and shown.
Mm-hmm.
Is that kind of unnecessarily repetitive to do that
Has
time
he
and
shown
time
and
again?
accomplished that?
I haven't been there. I'm just asking.
No.
Because all the highlights they show are him, getting 50-50 balls.
No, because the thing at the end of the day, BJ,
I just heard you say in spring training sometimes, Kevin, in baseball, that pitchers and batters will literally work on things they're struggling at during competition.
No, but that's my point. Why are we not running the go route? Oh, he can run a go route. Well, can he get open and run a go route? Because I don't think anybody knows that.
the question. I mean, the jury.
So I think that proves the point more. Like why can't we see that?
We love Trey Young because he panned out. If Trey Young stunk, we'd be like, it's what we say. Should have kept Luka. I'm just saying.
We got more to come waiting in the wings. Sean Elliott, Georgia State head coach, joins us next here. It's 3 and Out, Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you back. Here it is, 3 and Out. Glad you are with us all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network, also on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Go to our YouTube channel, ESPN Coastal, there on YouTube. You can watch us live there. Also, you can go to the ESPN app, espncoastal.com, catch the live stream going on there as well. So plenty of ways for you to catch us here on 3 and Out this afternoon. I believe, BJ, we are efforting Sean Elliott, Georgia State head coach, as they are opening up practice, coming off an 8-5 season, but 6-2 in the Sun Belt a year ago. Preseason pick third in the Sun Belt East.
And expectations are high, and understandably so. You're talking about a program that finished the season red hot. I believe won 6 of 7 to finish last season, played great football down the stretch. They bring back their quarterback, Darren Granger, who's one of the best quarterbacks in the Sun Belt. Played, again, fantastic over the final couple of months of the season. He's, I believe, a Conway native. So went to Coastal Carolina last year, helped the Panthers win over Coastal Carolina back there in Conway. So the Sun Belt is going to be rough week to week, no matter who you are, no matter who you're playing. We know that. We've talked about that when looking at Georgia Southern's schedule, right? Georgia State, you have the same conference foes. I believe Georgia State opens up with South Carolina, then gets North Carolina in Atlanta, then has Army, then has Coastal Carolina. I mean, you're talking about just a very, very challenging schedule, but I think a team that expectations are as high as ever. I mean, when you look in the Sun Belt East, and you heard Robbie Ross say he thought the Sun Belt East was what, like the second hardest division. Yeah, the second toughest division in college football. You're picked third behind Appalachian State and Coastal Carolina, and there's Georgia State right there. And I know Georgia Southern feels like they should be right there, if not higher. So with those programs, a great rivalry is developing. Ben, you and I have been to games up at Georgia Southern, up at Georgia State also. Both programs have a lot to offer, but I think expectations are very high for the Panthers this fall.
Once again, every time I talk about a team not named the University of Georgia in the state of Georgia, I keep talking about some of the hardest schedules. I talked about Georgia Southern yesterday, how hard their schedule is. I talked about how hard Georgia Tech is. Georgia State, wow. I mean, BJ, you mentioned at USC, hosting UNC, Charlotte, Coastal, Army, Georgia Southern, App State. Good luck. I mean, 8-5 last year, overall 6-2 in the conference. And we ain't even talking about, and once again, to even make it through the gauntlet of the first part of the schedule, you still got to deal with some of these newcomers. I think they play Southern Miss, and it's gonna be a long year. I mean, I'm pretty sure Coach Elliott gonna have his guys ready to go. But Kevin, I mean, USC, UNC, Army, Coastal, Charlotte. That's to start your season. I don't know who these schedule makers are, but they didn't do teams like Georgia Southern, Georgia State, or Georgia Tech.
But there are great opportunities there. I mean, when you think about Georgia State, you think about going to Tennessee and winning. You think about going to Tennessee and making a statement. You think about going to Auburn and leading that game for the vast majority of that game until a late comeback. I mean, Ben, I'm not trying to. When you think about Georgia Southern, you think about what they've done. You think about well, no, I'm not. I'm just talking about we look at all these games and we go, oh wow, this is a big time challenge. Look, everybody's team is everybody. Okay, here we go.
Because once again,
I can't even make a point about the Sun Belt.
No. What the hell are you talking about? Being Georgia Southern history? What you telling me for? What history are you talking about?
I'm just talking about the Sun Belt has multiple teams that have clearly shown they can go and play with anybody.
Yeah.
So for as much as we may look at that schedule and go, oh man, Georgia Southern's got to go to Nebraska. Oh man, the Carolinas, Georgia State right away. Well, I think that goes both ways to a certain extent. I mean, I guarantee you Nebraska's well aware of Georgia Southern.
Yeah.
I guarantee you South Carolina is well aware of a team that won 6 of 7 to win to finish last season.
And this is the same Georgia State team, if I'm not mistaken. We're a couple of years removed of them going into Knoxville and beating them
and winning that game convincingly.
So I got to ask this, Kevin and BJ. If Georgia Southern beats Nebraska, if Georgia State beats North Carolina, South Carolina, is it an upset or is it just a win?
I mean, I'm just saying, look at the Sun Belt, okay? Louisiana goes to Iowa State when they're in the top 10.
Beat the brakes off.
Wins by what, 20 plus?
Yeah, that was embarrassing.
I mean, you think about Arkansas State goes to Kansas State, wins that game, they score like 40 points.
Did Louisiana Monroe win and didn't they win in LSU or something like that? If I'm not mistaken.
That was Troy.
Troy.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Yep, Troy over
But one of them
LSU a
Sun Belt
couple of years
squads.
ago. Yeah, right. That was maybe Ed Orgeron's first year, I think. I think Troy beat LSU. I mean, you're talking about these programs that have gone and played not only Power 5 conference teams, but SEC teams. And sometimes when you lose, these games come right down to the wire. I mean, Coastal Carolina played a top 10 undefeated BYU team
and beat them.
Top 10.
Zach
I mean,
Wilson and company, yes.
So I think you've seen these programs, and I'm sure I'm forgetting of forgetful of upsets that we're talking about right off the top of our head here, but these are programs that have shown they can win these games. And matter of fact, I'm trying to think, the last Georgia State game you and I went to was Georgia State and Army. And, and that was a great game, and that was back and forth. These games feature some of the top teams in the country. These are teams that expect to be in consideration for the top 25. These are teams that expect to be in bowl games and in notable bowl games. So when you look at the Sun Belt and you see a team like Georgia State or Georgia Southern, you go, man, Nebraska, North Carolina, South Carolina. Don't be surprised when that game's a heck of a lot closer than you think.
So is it up to us now? I mean, I'm not going to call myself a seasoned media, personnel like Kevin and BJ. I'm still learning every day. Enjoying.
I consider Kevin seasoned.
Okay, Kevin is a Tom Brady seasoned, if you want to look at it that way. Because Kevin, listen, we're still doing it, but when are we going to stop calling them upsets? I say that for a reason. So now, when because I know it's G5 versus P5, what may have you. So when Georgia Southern or Georgia State or Troy's, when they beat the quote big dogs, is it just a win for them and not an upset? Because as long as we call it an upset, it's almost
that's a good point.
It's almost like saying, oh man, because I said this before. Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama, maybe Clemson, certain Texas A&M, that talent threshold is at a different level. It is not that big of a drop off.
It's not. And let me ask you this.
Want to make it seem.
Think about your favorite team, and maybe it's different with Georgia. Maybe it isn't. Maybe, but Georgia's the defending national champion, so I think it's fair to say it's different with Georgia. Okay, think about your favorite team, maybe outside of Georgia, Ohio State,
wasn't
Alabama.
Sean Elliott the coach at? Am I thinking
interim
at
South Carolina
at the Citadel?
I think he was interim at South Carolina.
Interim at South Carolina. I knew the Citadel had beaten South Carolina. I didn't know if he was part of that.
Here's the question I want to ask you. Do you want to play Coastal Carolina this year?
No.
Do you want to play Appalachian State this year?
No.
Do you want to play Louisiana this year?
No.
Do you want to play Georgia State this year?
No.
I mean, do you want to play Georgia Southern this year?
No.
And that's why I think these games, and it's not just the P5, G5. I remember talking to Carl Benson, the former commissioner of the Sun Belt, and he said, hey, I know we get caught up in the P5, G5 games, but what's also important for the teams in the Sun Belt are the games against their peer leagues. So like when Georgia State, or Georgia Southern rather plays UAB, that's a big game. That's an important game. And I'm trying to think, is UAB in Conference USA or these conferences change
they're moving
all the time.
all around. I think I think they're moving all around. Was UAB part of?
Were they in the ACT?
They were not. They were not.
They're in Conference USA. So I think those are important measuring stick games. When Georgia State plays Charlotte, Charlotte beat Duke last year. I mean, these are important measuring stick games. Army's been a top 25 team under Jeff Monken. Army's been a 10-win team under Jeff Monken. So it's not just North Carolina, South Carolina, Nebraska. It's all of the non-conference games, because I think there's a growing interest regionally and nationally in the Sun Belt. I think there are more fans aware of the programs, the coaches, the players, the atmospheres, the history, the tradition of the Sun Belt schools than ever before. And I think that as we learn more about these teams, like you said, Ben, maybe we're using the wrong words when we say, oh, that's a huge upset. Maybe that's not accurate anymore.
I don't think it's ever been accurate, if I can be honest. I mean, I know this all goes back to 15 years ago. Our App beat Michigan, and everybody's going crazy. Dexter Jackson, who was on that team, got drafted, 2008. He was second round pick. I was with the Bucks at the time. They got to keep Talib in the first round. I think what happens is, I always say this: it's either college football or it's not. Right? It's either college, and every time these teams say, oh man, these teams in the G, we just expect, P5 to be better than G5. That's just the expectation. That's not true. Because the thing about it is, no one wants to deal with the Sun Belt. Nobody want to deal with them. So Georgia State saying, man, y'all was surprised that we beat. Tennessee hasn't been Tennessee for a long time. I know that Coach Heupel and Henry Hooker and company got something to say about it, but don't say that Tennessee is a team on the rise, and then when they lose to Georgia State, oh, they got some. No. Georgia State is just a good team, and I just think that now when you start talking about college football, there are certain teams they lose. I get it. Oh, they beat who? But I just think that when you look at what the Sun Belt brings to the table, what Georgia State brings to the table, most teams in college football, they can stand toe-to-toe with them. And how you know? Because when, and I know BJ alluded to it, when Georgia Southern goes to Florida and they beat Florida, right? Yeah, they beat them. And they beat them doing what they do. Oh, they're going to shut that option down. There was a young man by the name of Jarek McKinnon. Jarek McKinnon's older brother. Played at Florida with me. Took a picture with little Jarek McKinnon. He probably grew up wanting to go to Florida. I don't know if Florida recruited him. He says, all right, Florida, I'm going to go to Georgia Southern because we play Florida, and I'm going to beat the brakes off y'all. And every time you walk in the facility, Georgia Southern, and guess what, BJ? The couple of passes that they threw, guess who we called it on? Hargraves. I'm just telling y'all, when you start talking about these schools, it ain't that big of a difference.
We've got more to come here. It is 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you back. We have found Coach Sean Elliott, head football coach of the Georgia State Panthers. He joins us here on 3 and Out. Coach, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, man, I apologize. Sometimes you get caught up in different things, and I'm here now and ready to talk.
Well, you guys finished the season as one of the hottest teams in the country. How do you carry that momentum over here into 2022?
Well, I mean, honestly, we've got a bunch of great players. We got some veteran players that know how to prepare to win and actually win. So we've got a lot of those guys returning. Could be an exciting time this fall. We've got to go and prepare and kind of put the last year behind us, because you can't really look back and say, hey, you're going to be a good football team based on last year's merits. So we've got to have a strong focus and a sharp mind and move forward.
Coach, you guys have a heck of an opening month to the season. What are your priorities here in fall camp?
Well, the priorities here in fall camp are just getting prepared, being very, very knowledgeable. Conditioning is a huge, huge part of our game, and we understand we have a good football team. And then going into our South Carolina game, being able to go out and compete at a very, very high level, not letting anything hold us back from a conditioning standpoint, from a heat standpoint. We've got to be at the top of our game when we go in there and play the SEC and Williams-Brice.
Coach, when you think about the reputation of the Sun Belt, you guys are adding 4 new members, and you guys are already top to bottom, the best P5 conference in the country. Just talk about how, where you guys sit at. New members coming in, but also trying to maintain, the standard you guys already got set up there at Georgia State.
Our Sun Belt Conference is the best in the Group of 5 league. I want you to know that. I've got fond memories of playing Marshall when I was a player at Appalachian State, and we were playing back in that day in the FCS days. They were 1 and we were 3, and I remember going up to Marshall and beating those guys, and they're competing for championships and winning FCS championships. Same thing with James Madison, Old Dominion. What a great reputation these programs have. Also, Southern Miss coming in the Western League. We've got to be ready to go and compete, just like we were with our original members. I mean, we've got a tough conference. Now we have an even tougher conference, strong as can be. One of the things people don't understand, App State's got North Carolina, the University of North Carolina coming in their place, I think, in week 2. And we've got the University of North Carolina coming in our place in week 3. So for the Sun Belt to have North Carolina coming in back-to-back weeks for a home game in our conference, that's exactly where our conference stands.
And Coach, how big is that? As you said, you got 2 big games right out of the gate, but to have teams, as you said, give you a home game, how big is that for continuing to build the program up?
Well, it's only as big as you make it. And, like I said, we've got South Carolina, Columbia on the 3rd. We've got North Carolina here on the 10th. We got to go do something special. You want people to recognize your conference, recognize your football program. You got to go knock them off. And if you don't play them, you can't beat them. So we're going into each and every one of these weeks, just like we would in South Carolina, North Carolina, if it were Charlotte or Army or any other conference game, with the mindset that we're going to take them down.
Coach, tell us about your quarterback, Darren Granger. I know had a great year last year, some big wins.
Darren's, he's really a remarkable story. Transfers in from Furman University, sits behind our starter from a year ago. And I think the 3rd or the 4th game, for whatever reason, things weren't going very well for us. We made the change in quarterback install. Darren Granger, our team, just has such confidence around him. They build around him, and he flourishes to a great start and a great finish. I think we won 7 of our last 8. And so he leads a very, very confident offense into this season. Tremendous leader, got a great personality, tremendous work ethic, and I think he's going to have a very, very good, solid 2022 season.
Coach, obviously with college football being right around the corner, I know what it's like being a former player, just being able to go out there and prove to the coaches I've gotten better from a year ago, prove to my teammates they can respect me and trust me on the field. But what is it like for you as the head coach, though? What is this time of the year like for you?
Well, honestly, I don't put the season or the preseason ahead of schedule. I take it for what it is. We open up and report tomorrow. We practice on Friday for the first time. I'm I'm one of those guys that don't let tomorrow ruin your today. So today I actually went to the Braves game, took in the Braves and the Phillies game. We're all on point. Our staff is so excited to go out and get back to what we do, and that's coach and prepare and win. And that's what our staff is ready to do.
Coach, we got about a minute left. Just talk about building the legacy, the tradition of the program. Obviously, Georgia State, when you look around college football, is one of the newer programs still. Every day, every win you guys get, it could be a new milestone for the program. Speak to being in that experience as a coach and saying, hey, we as a staff, we as a team, every time we go out there, we could literally be writing history for this thing.
I want you to understand this is going to my 6th season. And 6 years ago, going into that season, we were picked last. The very next season, we were picked the same. This year, we got a first place vote to go out and compete in the Sun Belt Conference. Somebody voted us first place. I think we're 3rd in the preseason, but people are recognizing that we have a good football program, a building football program, a program ready to compete for Sun Belt championship.
Coach Sean Elliott, head football coach at Georgia State. They're back at it on Friday. Coach, really appreciate the time. Thanks so much.
Appreciate you guys. Y'all have a great rest of the summer.
Will do. And they open up against South Carolina, North Carolina, as he mentioned there a couple of times as they get, so they could be front and center if they get off to a good start here in 2022. Appreciate Coach joining us here on the show. Also, Quincy Carter sat down with Ben for this week's edition of Troop Talk. If you miss any portion of the show, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you can catch that. Go to our YouTube page at ESPN Coastal there on YouTube, and you can catch any portion of the show you may have missed. We'll see you tomorrow, Thursday edition of 3 and Out, all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network.